Good evening.
Let's see. John, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, fantastic. I'm Charles Funk, the chair of the Board of Finance.
Nice to meet you. I'm Mike's friend.
Well, I'm glad you're here hosting.
Sure. Charles, will there be a public
Right now you're breaking up.
input?
There is a public comment section.
Okay. So what we'll want to do ideally is have people raise their hands or enter their name in chat when that comes up, so we can have you call on people one by one.
Yep, that sounds good. And if I'm looking for the chat with Zoom, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, button at the bottom.
Yeah.
Nope.
So John, we're probably going to have people joining via phone as well.
So what we can do, the good thing about Zoom on phones is that we actually can see their phone number. So we can have people muted, and we can, call on people by their phone number and unmute them and ask if they have, commentary.
Okay, and I know I'm going to have a couple of board members, Carl Falsgraf and Butch Simpson. Are you going to be able to put their names in place of the phone number?
I can change their name on the phone number. If we identify, whose phone number belongs to what person, I can change their name for the transcript.
Okay, all right. But as far as the meeting goes, we won't necessarily have their name when they go to speak.
Not necessarily. Right. The folks on the phone have no ability to enter their names. So we can, when they begin to speak using the phone, we can ask their name, and we'll change the identifier on the participant list.
Okay, so as long as we're speaking the same language here.
Yeah, maybe I'm not answering your question.
So you're going to be able to, if it's Carl or Butch as an example, you'd be able to, during the meeting or as they sign on, be able to add their name so that the name is visible during this meeting, or are you saying after?
As soon as we know their name, I can change it.
Okay, fantastic. Good. Yes, we're on the same page.
I feel like I'm decorating my house. Does it look good here? Does it look there? Nah. Just a little bit to the left. Nah, it's not good there. my mute.
Hey, Cheryl.
Dad, come. Go.
There we go. All right. Hey, Paul.
Hello.
Hello?
Hey, Carl. Hey, Butch.
Hey,
Yeah. I'm on.
I'm on.
Fantastic.
John, is this recording already?
Yes, it is. Since I started it, it records automatically. Or that's the setting I had.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Judy.
Hi.
John, are we able to identify Carl Falsgraf? I know he's on the phone. Can you change it so his name comes up versus a phone?
Yes, if we know which number he is. Carl, could you just speak up?
Hello.
Okay,
I'm here.
I see you.
Okay.
That's your 429-0144?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Is it Carl with a K or a C?
D.
Let's see.
PFAL. I'm sorry, help me out. T. Falsgraf?
No, Z.
Carl, can you spell your last name?
PFALZ. PFALZGRAF.
Okay, thank you.
He tries to utilize the whole alphabet.
Yeah.
Well, as a Guskowski,
The last-
I can't criticize.
Yeah, right?
The last kid in first grade to learn how to spell my name because it had a Z in it.
John, the other person that would be handy is if we could get Butch identified.
Butch, could you speak up, please?
Butch Simpson?
Okay.
Do we have Angie here yet? Do we have Esther?
Yes, can you hear me?
Fantastic. John, can you identify her as Esther?
Sure. Last name? Where's Esther?
Jagodzinski.
I'm sorry, could you spell that?
Jagodzinski.
Perfect. Thank you.
Who's Tom? There's a person just Tom?
They don't have to be identified
Oh, okay.
unless they speak.
Right. We'll ask
All right.
if people are submitting testimony, if they're speaking on the record, we will ask their names for the record.
Hi, Angie. Oh, really? Okay, fantastic. Good. Yeah. No, we're all here. I'm just sort of holding the fort till you get here. I guess try calling in. Hi. Yeah, let me get off the phone and try hooking in again. Yeah, so just call the John. I've got a board member that's having trouble getting to the meeting.
Okay. On their computer is the.
Yeah, apparently she's hit the link, but it won't connect her.
Chuck, is she using the Zoom meeting? Did she get the current agenda?
Yeah, so yeah, you have it's the current agenda that she's using. So John, I'll just have her call in, right?
Yeah, I think that's probably the best.
Okay, and she would use her cell phone.
Right.
Okay, Angie, try on your cell phone. Yeah. All right, bye-bye. I want to give Angie just a minute to see if she can get on. Is John Kopek here?
No.
All right. Cheryl, do you have Angie's number?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it sounds like she's having trouble. I think I'm going to start the meeting without her. And I'll probably just seat Esther for Angie until she's able to get here somehow.
No, I just have an email address.
Okay. All right. No worries. If Angie ever gets here, we'll seat her. So John, I think you're going to start the meeting. You're muted.
Okay, the meeting is recording. We'll ask folks, particularly not on the Board of Finance itself, to mute yourselves. I'm going to mute the telephones that are not identified as commissioners. If you do wish to speak when it comes to the public comment portion, we'd ask you to raise your hand, which is a feature that you can do in the chat, and in the chat section itself, just enter your name and the chairman will call on you one by one. And at that point, we'll also unmute phones to allow people to speak. So with that, I will step back and let the chairman take over.
Thank you, John. I want to call the meeting to order. It's 7:08, Thursday, May 28th, 2020. This is Ashford Board of Finance regular meeting. And at this point, I'd like to seat Esther for Angie. And if Angie makes it to this meeting eventually, we'll seat her. Communications. Based on our last meeting, we had some comments about unemployment in Ashford. And I wanted to get some clarification on that. And I reached out to Christina Davis, who looked into it a little bit for me. And I'm going to read the letter that she wrote to me. And again, what I want everybody to understand is that this is dated material. So this was written on 5/17. So with unemployment, this changes rapidly. So anyway, attached is an outline of the current unemployment picture in Ashford with links to data sources at the state of Connecticut's Department of Labor. To summarize the most important data points, as of the week of May 3rd, there were 203 residents of Ashford collecting unemployment benefits. That's out of a local labor force of 2,629 individuals. Unemployment rate, therefore, is 7.7%, which at that time was in line with state unemployment. I've emailed the research department of the Connecticut Labor Department to verify that my interpretation is correct. And if she hears back from them, she'll let us know. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach her unemployment data links so that anybody in town that wants to look at it themselves. I don't think it's an easy thing to interpret. You have to know how to read it, and they don't give you instructions on how to read it or interpret it. So best of luck. But I will like to add this to our minutes this week. And I also want to thank Christina Davis for looking into that. The next thing I was hoping to do, I had made an error in the agenda. I was hoping to approve the minutes of the special meeting and then have public comments. So I need to have somebody make a motion to switch agenda item 4 with agenda item 5.
So moved.
So move. Carl Falsgraf.
Seconded,
so
Esther.
Okay.
Here I am.
So who was the first?
Carl
I'll let Carl
Falsgraf.
have it.
Okay, so Carl's the first. And Esther, you're the second?
I'm here.
Yes.
I'm here.
Oh, is that Angie?
Yeah.
There you are.
I.
Angie, you're there.
Chuck,
We can see you.
Chuck, I'll withdraw my
I've been
second.
trying since 10 of.
Chuck, I'll withdraw my second so you can see Angie.
Okay, thanks, Esther. Angie, I'm going to seat you.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Very good. So, Valerie, Angie was seated at 713.
So who's going to second the motion?
I'll second it.
Somebody.
Okay, so Jesse seconded the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Thank you. So approving the minutes of the public hearing and the special town meeting, I had made 2 blatant errors, which I'd like to correct. Under the motions, I had intended on making sure that the numbers were accurate, and I used 30,000. This is on page 3. I used 30,000 instead of 3,436,582. And this is for the appropriation for the general government budget. So I'd like to make that correction. And then the next motion was also a placeholder of 90,000 for an increase to the school. So that motion should really read, Mr. Bean moved and Ms. DeSanto seconded a motion to approve an appropriation of $7,768,893. So those are the 2 corrections that I have for the minutes.
Excuse me, would you give me the figure for the first motion again? 3 million?
Certainly. So the first one should read, Mr. Falsgraf moved, Mr. Bean seconded a motion to approve an appropriation of $3,436,582.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Valerie. Otherwise, I had no other corrections. Any other discussion?
Yes, I've got something.
Certainly. Jesse?
All right. So, first off, I was the one that brought up the information on unemployment. Of course, that's what I said, so I can't change the minutes. So just to follow up with that letter, just check the website and we'll leave it at that. But the comment that I wanted to make sure was addressed was, I want to say it's on the third page where it has my information of me speaking. I just wanted to clarify that the comment I made about the superintendent, he did make the remark that he was looking at retirement at the end of his contract. And if he were to retire part-time, what I was saying was that we might possibly have to hire a full-time superintendent, so it would not be a cost savings. It would actually be an increase. So I just wanted to make that comment clarified on my minutes.
So, Jesse, when I read that paragraph, The last sentence says, he noted that if the superintendent, comma, as part-time position were to retire next year, that would be a savings. So what you're saying is that sentence you would like to modify.
Correct.
Okay, and what would you like it to say?
If he were to retire as a part-time and we possibly had to hire a full-time, it would actually be a major increase.
Okay.
Okay.
I know-
got it.
Valerie, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I've got it.
Okay, all right, very good. We'll make that correction, that clarification. Any other comments?
Yeah, Chuck, could you say the general increase again? What it was gonna be for the figure?
For the general
This is
government
Judy.
budget, it's Judy, sorry.
Yep.
$3,436,582.
Okay. I must have wrote it wrong in my notes.
Cheryl, I have that correct, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry, I muted myself.
Okay. Any other corrections? Do I have a motion to approve those minutes with those corrections?
So
Motion.
moved.
Is that Angie?
That's Angie.
Okay. Just as a reminder to everybody, announce yourself. We have a number of people that are on a phone, so they're not able to see as we can. So each time we speak, we need to announce who we are. So Angie's the first. I need a second.
This is Jesse Burnham. I'll second.
Thanks, Jesse. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Angie, aye.
Anybody opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. New business. The first order of business is to adopt the general government budget appropriation of $3,436,582 for fiscal year 2020-2021. I'm going to do these with a roll call vote for the next 5 items.
Excuse
Actually,
me, we didn't do public comments.
exactly. Before we do that, any public comments?
Obviously, if you're on the computer, you should have the ability to unmute yourself. Or go into the group chat and indicate that you'd like to comment. Mr. Chairman, if you'd like, I could unmute telephones. To see
Yeah,
if there's
let's.
any comment.
Thanks, John. Let's unmute the telephones and just I want to make sure that anybody in the public that wants to make a comment, they can. Well, we have quite a chatty group tonight.
Okay, I believe all the phones are unmuted, and people on the computer should have the ability to unmute themselves if they're interested.
Yep.
So.
All right. It doesn't seem like anybody wants to speak. Agenda item 6A, Adopt general government budget appropriation of $3,436,582 for fiscal year 2020, 2021. This is going to be the vote on behalf of the townspeople that the Board of Finance has been asked to deal with because of a variety of executive orders from the governor of the state of Connecticut. So I'm assuming, Cheryl, that I need to have somebody make a motion, or do we just have a vote?
No, you need a motion.
Okay, so I need somebody to make a motion to adopt the general government budget appropriation of $3,436,582 for fiscal year 2021.
So moved. Carl Falsgraf.
Carl's a first. Do I have a second?
Second.
Angie
Judy
DeSanto,
Austin.
second.
Okay, Angie is the second. Any discussion? I'm going to do roll call voting. Garth Bean,
Yes. Or I do.
Jesse Burnham,
Jesse Burnham, yes.
Angie DeSanto,
Angie DeSanto, yes.
Carl Falsgraf,
Carl Falsgraf, yes.
Judy Austin,
Judy Austin, yes.
Charles Funk, yes. Motion passes. I need somebody to make a motion to adopt the Ashford Board of Education budget appropriation of $7,768,893 for fiscal year 2020, 2021.
So moved.
Who was that?
Judy Austin, so moved.
Judy, thank you. Second?
Second, Carl Falsgraf.
Thanks, Carl. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Garth Bean,
Yes.
Jesse Burnham,
Jesse Burnham, yes.
Angie DeSanto,
Angie, yes.
Carl Falsgraf,
Carl Falsgraf, yes.
Judy Austin,
Judy Austin, yes.
Charles Funk, yes. Motion passes. I need someone to make a motion to adopt and confirm Region District 19's budget appropriation of $22,003,790, of which $3,901,532 is Ashford's share for fiscal year 2020, 2021.
Jesse Burnham, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Angie, second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote. Garth Bean,
Yes.
Jesse Burnham,
Jesse Burnham, yes.
Angie DeSanto,
Angie, yes.
Carl Falsgraf,
Carl Falsgraf, yes.
Judy Austin,
Judy Austin, yes.
Charles Funk, yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Item 6D, I need somebody to make a motion to adopt the capital improvement budget appropriation of $514,250 for fiscal year 2020, 2021.
Jesse
So
Burnham,
moved.
Jesse Burnham, second.
So Jesse's second, Carl's first.
Yes.
Any discussion? Roll call vote. Garth Bean,
Yes.
Jesse Burnham,
Jesse Burnham, yes.
Angie DeSanto,
Angie, yes.
Carl Falsgraf,
Carl Floscott, yes.
Judy Austin,
Judy Austin, yes.
Charles Funk, yes. Thank you, everyone. I just want to double check with Cheryl. We're still good with adopting fiscal year 2020 mill rate of 36.836.
That's correct. You're going to set the mill rate.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a motion to set the mill rate.
Angie DeSanto, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Second, Judy Austin.
Thanks, Judy. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Garth Bean,
Yes.
Jesse Burnham,
Jesse Burnham, yes.
Angie DeSanto,
Angie, yes.
Carl Falsgraf,
Carl Floscott, yes.
Judy Austin,
Judy Austin, yes.
Charles Funk, yes. Motion passes. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is fiscal year 1920 expenditure and revenue review. I think all of you either got it physically or got it electronically. I'm hoping that most of you got a chance to look through it, and I was wondering if anybody had any questions or clarifications. And one of the things that I wanted to do was start by asking Cheryl if there's anything that she is seeing at this point that we should be specifically paying attention to. And one of the questions I had for her was on page 9, planning and zoning. Right now, there's quite a deficit that we're going to have to deal with. And I was wondering if we had any thoughts. And this may be actually a question for Ralph, but I'm not sure. Right now, we're about 31,000 behind on that particular account. Do we know how we're going to deal with that yet?
That's, if I may, that's still the building official leaving, and then us hiring a zoning enforcement officer and part-time building official. So some of that will be offset by the salary that the previous official didn't take and his benefits.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm wondering is, if I have this correct, we would need to be moving monies from somewhere to cover planning and zoning. And I guess my question was, where were we thinking that would come from? Is that something that comes from under the building official line? Or how are we thinking about that?
Yes, some of it would be from the building officials' pay, and some of it would be from employee benefits. And I don't have it in front of me actually, but we've discussed this. There are places we'll be able to take the money from. Pension, is also a part that he won't be getting. So it is being offset.
So basically what we're getting at then is at some point, the selectmen will come to us with monies that need to be moved from one account to the other.
It will be part of our end of year adjustments.
Okay, good. Thank you. So, but overall, it's not a worrisome number. It's just, it's there right now.
Correct.
Okay.
The transfer station is probably the biggest wild card we have right now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, everybody's home cleaning out their garage.
Every space.
Anybody else have any expenditure or revenue questions? I guess I do have a question for Cheryl too, as far as revenue side of the equation goes. Is there anything that you're seeing that's concerning?
No, we received our town aid road funds and we've applied for our LoCIP funds. We haven't gotten them yet, but they were bonded for, so we should get them.
Yeah. The only other question I had was the planning and zoning non-capital equipment. There's a negative $337 $25, which actually is also in the building officials account as well.
Come on, get out of here.
Hey, Butch, you got to mute yourself when you're yelling at the cat.
I'm yelling at the raccoon that's breaking into my garage. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That's all right, Butch.
I'm yelling at the raccoon. I'm sorry.
Oh, God, this is great.
The meeting was getting boring, okay?
I guess so, huh? So, Cheryl, anyway, back to expenditure. Under planning and zoning non-capital equipment, there's an expenditure of $337. I'm just curious what it is, because it obviously has something to do with the building department as well. You're muted. You're still muted.
Because I switched screens, sorry.
There you are.
I'm playing over here. I would have to run a detail, and I can do that if you want.
Okay, so it's nothing that's concerning. Okay. Anybody else have any questions, expenditure and revenue?
No.
The next thing that we have on the agenda is action to transfer funds from the unassigned fund balance to capital non-reoccurring based on the fiscal year 18-19 audit, and also staying within the Board of Finance's financial goals. As a reminder to the board, our goals are to try to keep the unassigned fund balance somewhere between 10 and 15%. So what we've typically tried to do is get it down to the lower end of that scale and put some of that money into the capital non-reoccurring, which helps us protect it. And also, in case anybody's wondering, we can always move money back out of capital non-reoccurring if we opt to do that as well. So if it became an emergency situation, or something like that, we could, we could decide whether we want to pull some monies out of that. And the only way I see something like that happening is if for some reason we fall short on revenue, which has been some of your concerns. It's a concern that John Kopek brought up. It's a concern that Garth Bean had brought up to me as well. And I actually did speak to Ralph Fletcher, who happens to be here. And I think what we were starting to look at is a potential action plan. Ralph, I don't know, do you want to speak to that at all, or do you want me to?
I can a little bit. I've talked to a number of people on this issue. It's a little bit early to forecast what is actually going on because money is still coming forward. There's money coming from the federal government. And a lot of what we're looking at is not very good right now, but it might get better in the next few months is what I'm saying as they start to put this together. I think probably by within the next couple of months, we can start to see where this is being spent. We're spending an awful lot of money on this issue, both federally and at the statewide level. And it's going to be difficult next year. You know, we have used our surplus fund at the state level. I think we pretty much used that up. And it's going to be a difficult year next year. How difficult, we can't justify it right now or say what that's going to be, but it is going to be difficult next year. You want to add to that, Chuck?
Thank you. Yes, this is Charles Funk again. So one of the things that I thought the board started to bring up was this concept that we may not get the revenues, whether it's, you know, tax collection or the state may end up cutting some funding, you know, just because they're in desperate times. So one of the things that I did is I reached out to our accounting firm just to sort of run a scenario by them. And they are certainly willing to help us plan ahead. So what I'm getting at is, you know, what are we willing to look at? So is it CNR? Is it the undesignated fund balance? And how far do we take that down before it triggers potentially a loan, et cetera, et cetera. They're just scenarios. There's nothing that we can exactly put our finger on at the moment, but it seems reasonable to me that we start planning just in case. So as the auditor, as our accounting firm had said was, you know, what if you got cut 15% from state funding? How does that impact you, and how would you deal with it? We don't necessarily exactly know the answer to that, but I think we should think about it. We should say, okay, we're willing to take, you know, whatever we have to out of CNR. We're willing to take our undesignated fund balance down to 5% before we trigger a loan or something like that. So these are just scenarios, but it seems to me that we should start thinking about how does the town react if something from a funding side becomes draconian. So this is what Ralph and I have been talking about. The auditors recommended that the selectmen, and our first selectman specifically, speak to the Conference of Governments and to
CCM and cost.
Right. And, you know, kind of see what these groups are starting to think about as far as some of this goes. I don't see this as something that we need to do in a panic mode. I don't think it feels like that. I know we're a little ahead of the curve. When I talked to the accounting firm, they had not been asked by any other town to consider this type of scenario. So I think we're a little ahead of the curve, but I'd rather be ahead of this particular thinking than behind. So I believe that we have the attention of the selectmen, and I know that we're in regular contact, and at some point we're going to try to, you know, put together some thoughts on this that the board would then be able to review. Ralph, anything else that you can think of on that front?
No, not at the moment, Chuck, but you know, it's changing on a daily basis, and I think we have to just stay on top of it month by month.
Yeah.
As we go forward.
Okay. So it seems to me, if I remember, Cheryl, this is a question for you. If I remember correctly, in our audit, we have about 12%.
That's correct.
Okay. And so one of the scenarios I was thinking I would present to the board was that we would move, and I'm going to ask Cheryl for a little bit of clarification on this, but that we would move monies into CNR that would reduce our undesignated fund balance to about 10.5%. I don't think I personally don't think it's smart to go right down to 10 because I think we want the perception of a healthy fund balance, and this gives Cheryl a little bit to work with when rating agencies are looking at us. So Cheryl, in one of your scenarios, the one question I had was under insurance payment of the $49,615. That's in our undesignated fund balance now, correct?
That's correct.
And the question is, are we moving that within this 10.5% because it's going to be used on a school bus, or what's this scenario on mean?
That $49,615 is in the capital budget as being transferred from unassigned fund balance into capital projects to offset the cost of the bus.
Okay, and so this $216,559 includes that.
Which 216,559?
So on your UFB 2019 20 calculation.
You mean to transfer into CNR?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so the 216,559 includes the 49,615.
It's included in the calculation.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure I understood what I was reading. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So it would be my recommendation that we keep our undesignated fund balance at least 10.5%. And in doing that, that would allow us to transfer $216,559 into capital non-reoccurring. Any of the board members have a thought on that?
What does that make the total capital non-reoccurring? About 800,000?
Cheryl, do you have a figure on that once we're at the end of this fiscal year? It's around 500 and something, right?
Yes. I have to switch sheets. If you transfer the 216,559, it's about 320,000 left.
So Cheryl, let me just make sure I understand. So there's, after the end of this year, there's about 300 and how much left?
Well, on July 1st, there would be about 320,000 left because we've dedicated or allocated 215,000 plus the 49,000 to go to capital projects. So there'd be $584,953, but we have plus that. But we've dedicated $265,219 to go to capital projects.
Right, for this upcoming fiscal year.
Correct.
Right. Okay. All right. Esther, does that answer your question?
Can't we move this at any time? And based on what your previous comments were about possibility of cash flow for next year, wouldn't we and possible bond people or people setting rates working with Cheryl, wouldn't we want to keep it there until we need it and then move it? Or are you saying this has to be done now?
Yeah, part of the reason we want to do this is it helps protect that money. And again, I don't know if either Ralph or Cheryl can illuminate that a little bit more, but when we move money into capital non-reoccurring, it gives us a level of protection. And we can, and one of the things I wanted to say also to Esther and the board, we can always move that money back if we opt to. Cheryl, what is it by moving it into CNR? Do you know why that offers us some protection? Is it because it's allocated?
It is. That makes it being used for something. If we leave it in unassigned, it leaves it open to litigation or contract negotiations.
Right. So Esther, I think, we've been doing that for, a zillion years. So it's a fair question as to why we would or wouldn't do it. But I think we're better off moving it in there. And then if we need it, we can make a move to pull it out. But it offers us some protection.
Chuck, can I interject?
Sure, Carl.
Well, in my years on the Board of Ed, whenever we negotiated with the teachers' union, the first thing their union lawyers brought to the table was how much money we had in that account. Because back then we didn't have capital non-reoccurring, and that account sometimes was up around 15, 16%.
Okay.
And their lawyers were right on that, just like bees on honey.
Chuck, it's also something every time the state is having financial issues, they ask the towns what they have in their unassigned fund balance. They've done it just in the past month over the COVID-19 reimbursements. There was a questionnaire asking about our expenditures and our projected expenditures. And oh, by the way.
Yeah, so in your, and maybe this is a question for Ralph too. So Cheryl or Ralph, and maybe both of you, is there an argument then to really bring it down to the 10%?
I don't think it makes much difference anymore.
Okay.
I agree.
So any other questions about transferring into capital non-reoccurring? Judy?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Anybody else?
It sounds like the smart thing to do, Chuck. So I thank you for explaining that, both you and Cheryl.
Okay, thanks, Esther. Well, why don't we have somebody make a motion to transfer $216,559 in from undesignated fund into capital non-reoccurring.
Unassigned.
So move, Carl.
Second,
Who
Judy.
was that? Oh, Carl first.
Carl's the first, and who was the second?
Judy.
Judy, thank you, Judy. Any more discussion? I wonder if I should do a roll call vote.
Actually, Chuck, this is Jesse.
Yep.
One last question. So if we move this 216, that brings the CNR to what would be the final amount?
Well, we won't, there's no final amount until the end of the year.
End of July, or
Yeah.
July 1st.
Yeah, June 30th. It keeps moving.
Okay, but approximate, like
Approximately $585,000.
580. All right, thank you.
Any other discussion? I guess I'll do a roll call vote. Garth?
Yes.
Jesse?
Jesse Burnham, yes.
Angie?
Angie, yes.
Carl?
Carl Falsgraf, yes.
Judy?
Judy Austin, yeah.
And Charles Funk, yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Agenda items for the next meeting. I don't have any at the moment.
I'd like to add one.
Sure.
I'd like to have somebody from the Board of Ed explain what plans they have to tackle the low test scores that were announced right before we stopped having meetings.
So what I'll do is I'll reach out to I know John is in on this meeting, but I'll reach out to John Lippert and see if they can have someone speak to that particular question.
I just think their administration should be looking at that, and for all we've heard about the great STEAM programs and everything and how it makes them better problem solvers, then these test scores should be going up.
So Carl, what am I specifically asking him? Or we could talk about it some other time, but what are you looking
I want to know if they've addressed it as a problem, and what their administration is doing about it.
Okay, so is it a concern? And what are they doing if it is a concern? And if it's not a concern, why?
That sounds good.
Okay, I'll reach out to John and see what his thoughts are on addressing that.
Thank you.
Any other agenda items that anybody has? Remarks for the good of the board.
What about number 8? The annual report update from Mr.
Oh yeah, you're right. I missed it. We're backing up to 6H, town annual report update. Jesse, do you have anything?
I don't have much to update on that. I'm still working on trying to put together the dedication part of it.
Yep.
Cheryl, I haven't talked with you recently. Is there anything you need from me, or do you have the actual report all set and finalized?
Well, we're a little short on people right now, Jesse, so.
That's certainly understandable.
It's not completed, but we are still working on it.
So my understanding, Jesse, is that Laura is in the beginning process of getting that report put together. I think she's had limited access to a computer for a while, and she's had limited time just because of lack of access to the office. But I think they've made some adjustments to that, and I think it's now moving forward. So I'm not pushing anybody about this town annual report. I just want to get it done at some point and make sure we don't forget about it. So, this thing will happen eventually, but given the COVID stuff, it's really thrown a clinker into making it move smoothly. Thanks for the reminder, Valerie. I totally skipped over it. So back to remarks for the good of the board. Anybody have anything? I just wanted to thank the voting board, all the board members, but specifically the voting board members of tonight's meeting. I think you all stepped up and did the right thing, and it wasn't an easy thing to do. These 6 people have to bear the responsibility of this budget for the town of Ashford. And I think some of you, this weighed very heavily on you. And I very much appreciate all of your efforts and making it run smoothly. It's a real, I really tip my hat to all of you, and thank you very much. Carl, I need you to make a motion.
Move to adjourn.
Judy Austin, second.
All right, Judy. Thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Good night, peeps.
Butch, did you get that raccoon?
The raccoon's still out in my garage, but he ain't busting everything up like he was.
All right, you want me to
He's
send
come
some
for his
over?
dinner. He's on the wrong side of the house. I feed him on the other deck. He got the wrong. He must think there's no inside restaurant tonight.
All right, you
No
want me to send
inside
somebody over
feeding.
there? Butch,
What's that?
you want me to send John over and get that raccoon?
No,
Okay.
no. He's welcome there every night, but
Oh.
he's got to behave.
All right, long as he knows you. Okay, take
Yeah.
care now.
Mr.
night,
Chairman,
It sounded like someone was breaking in.
Mr. Chairman, I'm keeping that in the
Okay, everybody.
recording.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, yeah.